I never thought I'd be the kind of person posting my life on Reddit, but here we are. I need to get this off my chest because it's eating me alive, and maybe someone out there can relate or at least understand what I'm going through. I've been married for about 9 years. Not perfect, not a fairy tale, but I genuinely thought we had a solid relationship. We laughed, we traveled, we argued like any couple does, but I always felt connected. Until recently, when things started feeling off. Small things at first. She'd snap at me over little things, get defensive when I asked normal questions, or suddenly change plans without much explanation. At the time, I chalked it up to stress at work or just general life chaos. But deep down, something didn't feel right. A couple weeks after that conversation, something small happened that should have meant nothing, but didn't. She told me she had a late meeting at work. Nothing unusual, she's said that before. But this time, she was weirdly specific. Like, overly detailed about it. Who would be there, what they'd discuss, even complaining in advance about how boring it would be. That alone didn't bother me. What did was that about an hour after she left, she texted me. Meeting got pushed, might be really late. Don't wait up. Again, fine. Normal. Except, around 9 p.m., I got a notification on my phone from our shared Uber account. We used it sometimes interchangeably, and I guess she forgot it was still logged in on my device. It showed a ride. Not to her office. To a part of the city she has absolutely no reason to be in. I just stared at it for a while, trying to come up with some explanation that made sense. Maybe she had to meet someone. Maybe the meeting location changed. So I texted her, trying to sound casual. Hey, how's the meeting going? She replied almost instantly. Still in it. Dying of boredom LOL. That's when my stomach dropped. Because I was literally looking at a receipt that said she had just been dropped off somewhere else. I didn't confront her right away. I don't even know why. Maybe I was hoping there was still some logical explanation. Maybe I just didn't want to hear the truth yet. She got home around midnight. Walked in like nothing happened. I asked, long meeting? She rolled her eyes, kicked off her shoes, and said, yeah, I told you. Can we not do this right now? I'm exhausted. No hesitation. No slip-up. Just straight up lying to my face like it was nothing. And here's the messed up part, I almost let it go. But then, as she went to shower, her phone lit up on the counter. And I saw a name I had never seen before. Followed by a message that said, "Miss you already." That was the moment I knew, this wasn't just in my head anymore. I just stood there staring at her phone like an idiot. The screen went dark after a few seconds, but that message burned into my brain. Miss you already. Not, see you tomorrow, not, thanks for tonight. That wasn't casual. That wasn't work. And suddenly every little thing over the past few months started lining up in the worst way possible. The late nights. The sudden meetings. The way she'd smirk at her phone and then immediately lock it when I got close. The random bursts of affection out of nowhere, like she was overcompensating. I remember my hands actually shaking a bit. Not dramatic movie-style shaking, just enough that I noticed it. I kept telling myself, don't jump to conclusions. You don't know anything yet. But at the same time, I kind of did. She was still in the shower. I could hear the water running. I knew this was probably the only chance I'd get. So yeah. I picked up her phone. And before anyone jumps on me, I know. Privacy, trust, all that. But let's be real for a second, something was already broken. I just didn't know how bad. The phone was unlocked. I don't know if she forgot or just didn't expect me to actually check, but there it was. Messages open. The name at the top, D. I opened the thread. And I wish I hadn't. It wasn't just flirting. It wasn't even something you could maybe explain away. It was full-on emotional and physical cheating. Messages about meeting up. Jokes about almost getting caught. Complaints about me, about how predictable I am, how I wouldn't suspect a thing. Even details about nights she told me she was working late, turns out she was with him. There were pictures too. Nothing explicit enough to get into details here, but enough to make it very, very clear what was going on. I felt sick. Like, actually nauseous. I had to sit down. And the worst part? This wasn't new. The messages went back at least a couple months. Maybe more. I didn't even scroll all the way up, I couldn't. I heard the shower turn off and panicked for a second, locked the phone, and put it exactly where it was. Then I just sat on the couch, staring at nothing, trying to process how my entire relationship just collapsed in about 5 minutes. She came out like everything was normal. Asked me what I wanted to watch. And I just looked at her. Thinking, who the hell are you? I didn't say anything that night. I know some people would have confronted her immediately, thrown the phone in her face, demanded answers. But I didn't. I couldn't. It was like my brain just froze. We sat on the couch. She put on some random show. I don't even remember what it was. She leaned against me at one point like everything was normal. And I just sat there, completely numb. Every time she laughed or made a comment, all I could think about was those messages. Her calling me predictable. Her joking with that guy about almost getting caught. Like I was some kind of joke to her. I barely slept that night. My head kept replaying everything, every moment from the past few months, but now with context. Times she canceled plans. Times she picked fights out of nowhere. Times she accused me of being distant. It all made sense now. And somehow that made it worse. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Kissed me goodbye. Said, don't work too hard today. Same routine. Same tone. Like she hadn't completely destroyed everything. That's when something in me shifted. The shock started wearing off, and in its place came this, cold, focused feeling. I didn't want excuses. I didn't want half-truths. If I was going to confront her, I wanted everything. So I decided not to say anything yet. Instead, I started paying attention. Over the next few days, I noticed things I would have ignored before. She'd step out to take calls more often. She started going to the gym at weird hours, even though she's never been consistent with it before. She smiled at her phone constantly, but if I walked in, it was like a switch flipped. Once, I walked in on her mid-text. She locked her phone so fast it was almost automatic. Then she snapped at me, "Can you not just barge in like that?" I just said, "Sorry," and walked away. But inside, I was done apologizing. A couple nights later, she said she had another late meeting. Same tone. Same casual lie. This time, I didn't argue. I just nodded and said, "Okay." But as soon as she left, I made a decision that would pretty much confirm everything beyond any doubt. And honestly, there was no going back after that. The second she walked out the door, I grabbed my keys and waited about a minute before following her. My heart was pounding the entire time, and I kept thinking, what the hell am I doing? This isn't me. I'm not the kind of guy who tails his own wife like some bad detective in a cheap movie. But then again, I'm also not the kind of guy who gets cheated on and just pretends everything's fine. She ordered another Uber. I kept my distance, followed in my car, trying not to lose her but also not be obvious. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life play out. The car stopped. Same area as before. Not an office. Not even close. It was a residential building. Nothing fancy, just a normal apartment complex. She got out, looked around quickly, not like she was scared, more like she was making sure no one she knew saw her, and then walked straight inside. No hesitation. Like she'd done this 100 times. I parked across the street and just sat there, staring at the entrance. Part of me still hoped. I don't even know what I hoped for. That she was visiting a friend? That there was some explanation that didn't make me look like a complete idiot? But deep down, I already knew. About 20 minutes later, I saw him. A guy walked up to the building, casually, like he belonged there. Mid-30s maybe. Confident. Relaxed. He didn't buzz. He just walked in. That told me everything. I don't know how long I sat there after that. Time felt weird. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been an hour. At some point, I realized something that hit harder than anything else so far. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a mistake. This was routine. Planned. Repeated. Comfortable. I eventually drove home, feeling empty. Not even angry yet. Just hollow. She came back around midnight again. Same as before. Walked in, sighed dramatically, and said, "God, I hate these late meetings." I looked at her for a second and asked, "Yeah. Productive at least?" She shrugged, tossed her bag aside, and said, "Not really. Total waste of time." And then she went to the kitchen like nothing happened. Just, like nothing happened. That's when the anger finally kicked in. Not explosive. Not yelling. Just this quiet, steady realization. She really thought I was that stupid. And now? Now I wasn't just hurt. I was ready to confront her. I just didn't know yet how ugly it was about to get. I didn't confront her that night either. Not because I was scared anymore. That part was gone. It was something else, control, maybe. For the first time in days, I didn't feel confused. I wasn't second-guessing myself. I knew exactly what was happening. And weirdly, that clarity made me calmer than I'd been since this whole thing started. I watched her move around the kitchen like it was just another normal night. She opened the fridge, poured herself a drink, scrolled on her phone for a second, probably texting him, honestly, and then asked me if I wanted anything. Like we were just, us. Like nothing was broken. I said no. She nodded, took a sip, and leaned against the counter. "Long day," she said. And that's when I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the level of ease in her voice was just unreal. Like she'd rehearsed this version of reality so many times that it had become second nature. I just looked at her and said, "Yeah. I can imagine." She didn't even catch it. Or maybe she did, and chose to ignore it. That night, I didn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't shock keeping me awake. It was planning. Because I realized something important: if I confronted her emotionally, right then and there, she'd deny everything. Twist it. Minimize it. Maybe even turn it around on me somehow. I'd seen enough to know that version of her existed now. So I decided I wasn't going to give her that chance. The next morning, I acted normal. Or at least, normal enough. We had coffee together. Talked about random things. She told me about some coworker drama, and I just nodded along, thinking, "You really are committed to this story, huh?" At one point, she smiled at me. And I felt nothing. That scared me more than anything else so far. Not anger. Not sadness. Just, nothing. Before she left for work, she kissed me again. Same routine. Same lie. And as soon as the door closed behind her, I grabbed my phone and sat down. Because now it wasn't just about what I knew, it was about what I could prove. I don't know why that mattered so much in that moment. Maybe it was about protecting myself. Maybe it was about making sure she couldn't rewrite reality later. So I started documenting things. The Uber receipts. The times she left and came back. The messages I had seen. I wrote down everything I could remember, word for word. That predictable comment especially. That one stuck. It felt almost clinical. Like I was collecting evidence in a case instead of processing the fact that my marriage was falling apart. Over the next few days, I kept watching. And the more I watched, the worse it got. She wasn't even being careful anymore, at least not in ways I hadn't already learned to notice. There was a pattern. Specific days. Specific times. Always the same area. Always the same kind of excuse. Once, she even got dressed up more than usual for one of these meetings. That one hit differently. Because it wasn't just secrecy anymore, it was effort. She cared about how she looked. Just not for me. At some point, the sadness finally caught up. It hit me out of nowhere one afternoon while I was sitting alone, just staring at my phone. 9 years. 9 years of memories, routines, inside jokes, plans, and now I was sitting there tracking her like a stranger. I remember thinking, when did we become this? But even that question didn't really have weight anymore. Because deep down, I knew, it didn't matter when it started. What mattered was that she was choosing it now. Over and over again. And that realization flipped something in me for good. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was a decision she kept making. Every lie. Every message. Every night she walked into that building. A choice. And suddenly, I didn't feel like the guy who was about to confront his cheating wife. I felt like the guy who had already been disrespected, and just hadn't responded yet. That's a very different mindset. So I made up my mind. No more waiting. No more watching. I was going to confront her. But not in the heat of the moment. Not mid-argument. Not in a way she could dodge. I wanted it clean. Direct. Unavoidable. That evening, when she got home, I was already sitting on the couch. No TV. No distractions. Just waiting. She walked in, saw me sitting there, and paused for half a second. Just a flicker, but I caught it. "Hey," she said. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. Really looked this time. And I realized something that somehow hurt more than everything else combined. I didn't recognize her anymore. Not really. Same face. Same voice. But the person behind it? Gone. Or maybe just, someone I never actually knew. She shifted a little under my stare. "What?" she asked, half smiling, like she was trying to keep things light. And that's when I finally said it. "Where were you last night?" Simple. No accusation in my tone. No anger. Just a question. She didn't hesitate. "Work. I told you. Don't." I cut her off. First time I'd done that in a long time. She blinked, surprised. "What do you mean, don't?" And I just held her gaze and said, "Don't lie to me again." That's when everything changed. You could actually see it happen. That moment where her brain started recalculating. Where the script she'd been using didn't quite fit anymore. Her expression tightened just a little. "I'm not lying," she said. And I nodded slowly. "Okay." Then I reached for my phone. And that's when I saw it. For the first time since this all started. She looked nervous.